Senior Diplomat Zix 427 adjusted his crystalline viewing screen, watching the holographic display of human titles float before him. The translation matrix had been working overtime, categorizing and analyzing every possible variation of human authority structures it could detect from their communications. His thin, iridescent fingers traced the neat hierarchical lines with satisfaction. "Fascinating species," he murmured to his assistant, Ven 891. "They appear to have developed exactly 57 distinct levels of authority. How wonderfully organized." The gleaming diplomatic vessel approached New Haven's orbital station, its sensors drinking in every transmission, every communication pattern. The matrix hummed contentedly, sorting humans into their proper boxes of authority. Military command, colonial administration, technical operations, medical services, all neatly labeled and ranked. Through the ship's viewing portal, New Haven's sprawling colony stretched across the planet's twilight zone, where eternal sunset painted the protective domes in shades of amber and gold. Mining operations dotted the rocky terrain, while agricultural domes created perfect circles of green among the rust-colored landscape. "We have incoming transmissions from their leadership," Ven 891 reported, her voice melodious with the particular harmonics that indicated professional satisfaction. "The Matrix has already categorized them." The holographic display flickered, showing profiles of the colony's top officials. Commander Sarah Chen's credentials scrolled past. Military background, executive training, appointed by Earth Central. Everything aligned perfectly with the Galactic Diplomatic Corps' expectations of a primary authority figure. Their hierarchy mirrors the Centaurian model, Zix 427 noted, adding another observation to his already extensive report. This should make negotiations remarkably straightforward. The docking procedure began, and Zix 427 reviewed his cultural preparation one final time. He had memorized every title, every rank, every honorific that the Matrix had identified. He knew exactly who could authorize what, who reported to whom, and most importantly, who held true power in the colony. As the airlock cycled, Zix 427 straightened his ceremonial robes, the crystalline patterns shifting to display his own rank and authority. The heavy doors slid open to reveal a human welcoming party, all wearing indicators of rank that the Matrix immediately translated into his visual feed. "Welcome to New Haven." Commander Chen stepped forward, her uniform neat and authoritative. "We're honored to host representatives of the Galactic Diplomatic Corps." Zix 427 performed the greeting gesture his species reserved for equals in authority, pleased when his neural feed confirmed Commander Chen's biometrics matched exactly with the Matrix's predictions for a colonial leader. Steady voice, confident posture, clear chain of command evident in how others deferred to her. The tour of the colony began, each step confirming the Matrix's analysis. Department heads reported to sub-administrators, who reported to administrators, who reported to Commander Chen. It was all beautifully logical, wonderfully predictable. "And this is our medical bay." Commander Chen gestured as they entered a pristine facility. "Dr. Reynolds, our chief medical officer, will brief you on our health protocols." Zix 427 noted with approval how the medical staff's rankings displayed clearly in his visual feed, each title indicating their exact place in the hierarchy. This was why he loved first contact with new human colonies. Everything was always so perfectly ordered, so precisely categorized. He had no way of knowing that the translation matrix was about to encounter its first major failure in decoding human social structures. No way of predicting that all its careful calculations and categories would be rendered meaningless by a simple title that carried more weight than any official rank. Doc. Looking around the medical bay with satisfaction, Zix 427 felt confident in his understanding of human authority. The Matrix had never failed him before, after all. And surely, if there was anything significant he had missed, his extensive diplomatic training would have prepared him for it. He was about to discover just how wrong both he and the Matrix could be. The first case appeared in Mining Section 4, deep beneath the colony's surface. A young geologist stumbled into the medical bay, her skin shimmering with an otherworldly glow that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Within hours, 3 more miners arrived, each bearing the same starlit sheen across their skin. "Most unusual," Dr. Reynolds muttered, running his scanner over the 4th patient. "Commander Chen, I recommend we isolate Mining Section 4 immediately." Zix-427 observed from his designated diplomatic post, his translation matrix humming as it processed the proper channels of command. The request would go from medical to colonial administration, then to mining operations, and finally filter back down through proper channels. He estimated the quarantine would be implemented within the standard 26 hours. Commander Chen simply nodded and spoke into her communicator. "Mining Section 4 is now under quarantine. Effective immediately." Zix-427's antenna twitched in surprise. The Matrix frantically recalculated the authorization pathways it had so carefully mapped. This was not following standard protocol at all. By evening, the medical bay's isolation ward held 15 humans and 2 Centaurian mining specialists, all glowing like they'd swallowed starlight. Dr. Reynolds looked increasingly concerned as his tests revealed nothing about the cause. "Commander," he began, but a fit of coughing interrupted him. When he lowered his hand, his palm sparkled with the same ethereal light. The matrix in Zix-427's neural feed registered the first warning of system instability. A chief medical officer becoming a patient violated several predicted authority structures. Commander Chen stepped forward to help Reynolds to a bed, but swayed suddenly. The starlight was already beginning to shimmer beneath her skin. Zix-427's matrix threw up error messages as it tried to compute a scenario where the primary authority figure became incapacitated. "This is highly irregular," Ven 891 whispered to her superior. "Should we not implement emergency protocols?" Before Zix-427 could respond, a new human entered the medical bay. The Matrix identified him as a standard physician, no special rank or authority noted. "I heard we have a situation," he said quietly, rolling up his sleeves as he assessed the room. "Doc," one of the nurses called out, relief evident in her voice. "The commander's down." Zix-427 watched in growing confusion as the medical staff immediately began reporting to this unranked physician. His neural feed was drowning in contradictory data. Nothing about this followed the carefully mapped chains of command. The mysterious illness spread through the colony like a stellar wind. Within days, the main medical bay and 2 emergency overflow facilities glowed with the light of their patients. The alien diplomats observed in bewilderment as their understanding of human authority structures crumbled. "The Matrix cannot be wrong," Zix-427 insisted, even as he watched a colonel take directions from a civilian doctor. "There must be some explanation for these aberrations." Through the chaos, the unranked physician, this doc, moved with quiet purpose. He transformed the colony's greenhouse into an auxiliary care facility, coordinated with the mining teams to set up air filtration systems, and somehow got the hydroponics department to begin producing medical supplies. Zix-427's matrix crashed completely when he witnessed the colony's head of security asking Doc for permission to implement new patrol routes. The security chief didn't even wait for authorization from his proper superior. "This defies all known diplomatic protocols," Ven 891 observed, her voice harmonics expressing deep distress. "How can they function without proper authority structures?" Zix-427 had no answer. His species had spent decades studying human organizational hierarchies, creating perfect models of their command structures. Yet here, in the face of crisis, those structures seemed to dissolve like stardust in the wind. As the alien diplomat watched the shimming, starlit humans move through their tasks with surprising coordination, He began to suspect that perhaps the Matrix had been translating the wrong things all along. Dr. James Martinez had just finished a 16-hour shift treating routine cases when the first Starlight patients arrived. He'd spent the morning handling space adaptation sickness in new colonists, the afternoon dealing with minor mining injuries, and the evening checking on the hydroponics team's latest case of algae-induced rash. Nothing in his decades of medical experience had prepared him for what walked through his door that night. "Someone said you might know what to do about this," a young miner said, holding up hands that sparkled like the night sky. "The main medical bay is overwhelmed." The physician adjusted his old-fashioned glasses, a quirk that had earned him plenty of good-natured teasing in an age of corrective surgery. "Let's have a look then," he said quietly, reaching for his diagnostic tools. "And please, just call me Doc." "Everyone does." Zix-427 observed from the doorway of the small clinic, his neural feed struggling to categorize this interaction. The Matrix showed the miner should have gone through proper medical channels, not sought out an off-duty physician in a secondary facility. "Fascinating case," Doc murmured, examining the shimmering skin. "Reminds me of something I saw once in the bioluminescent caves on Europa. Tell me about your last mining shift." The alien diplomat watched in growing confusion as more colonists began arriving, each greeting the physician with the same informal title. His Matrix kept trying to assign proper rank and authority to this human, but nothing made sense. Even more baffling was how Doc seemed to gather information through casual conversation, rather than formal medical interrogation. The environmental engineers mentioned similar patterns in the ventilation filters. A technician offered, scratching at her glowing arms. "Like Starlight got stuck in the system." Doc nodded thoughtfully, making notes on an actual paper notebook. Another archaic habit that defied the Matrix's understanding of modern medical protocols. Anyone noticed if it follows the mineral seams down in the mines? Zix-427's antenna twitched as he observed humans of various ranks freely sharing information without going through proper channels. His diplomatic training had never covered such irregular behavior. The small clinic quickly became a hub of activity. Security officers stopped by to check in, but ended up sharing vital information. Mining supervisors dropped in for casual visits that resulted in coordinated response plans. Even the hydroponics team started redirecting their resources based on Doc's quiet suggestions. "This human holds no official authority," Ven 891 whispered to her superior, her harmonics expressing deep confusion. "Yet they all defer to his judgment. Perhaps the Matrix needs recalibration," Zix-427 replied, though uncertainty crept into his own harmonic patterns. The situation reached a breaking point when a colonial administrator arrived, her skin already beginning to shimmer. "Doc," she said without preamble, "we need your help coordinating the response. Commander Chen and Dr. Reynolds are both down with this thing." The physician looked up from his paper notes, eyes thoughtful behind those antiquated glasses. "Well then," he said simply, "we better get to work." Zix-427 watched in astonishment as the administrator, who outranked this simple physician by at least 12 levels according to the Matrix, waited patiently for his response. The entire scene violated every principle of hierarchy his species had documented about human society. Doc stood, tucking his notebook into his pocket. "First, we'll need to convert the greenhouse into an auxiliary care facility. The plants there might help us understand what we're dealing with. Then we'll talk to the mining teams about those mineral seams." No orders were given. No authority was claimed. Yet within hours, the greenhouse conversion was underway, and mining teams were gathering samples based on Doc's theories. The Matrix nearly shut down trying to compute how this human accomplished so much without invoking any official rank or title. "Remember," Doc told each new arrival to his expanding team, "observation is our best diagnostic tool. We're all researchers now." Zix-427 could only watch, his carefully constructed understanding of human authority crumbling, as this unranked physician began quietly orchestrating the colony's entire crisis response. Perhaps, he realized, the Matrix had been searching for the wrong kind of power all along. The greenhouse's transformation happened like a dance, each participant moving in perfect rhythm without a choreographer. Doc hadn't issued any orders. He'd simply mentioned that the plants might help them understand the starlight sickness, and the colony responded. Hydroponic specialists carefully relocated essential food crops, their movements precise and practiced. Engineering teams retrofitted environmental controls, working around the medical equipment being installed by off-duty nurses. Even the maintenance crew pitched in, rigging temporary power systems without waiting for official requisition forms. Zix-427 documented everything, his neural feed struggling to process the apparent chaos that somehow produced perfect order. This defies all known organizational protocols, he muttered to Ven 891. Look there, his assistant pointed to where a security officer was helping a botanist move delicate specimens. That human is performing tasks far outside their designated function. Doc moved through the organized chaos like a conductor without a baton, pausing here to suggest a more efficient arrangement of beds, there to help connect a diagnostic terminal. His quiet presence seemed to guide without commanding, inspire without ordering. The ventilation system needs adjustment, he mentioned casually to no one in particular. Within minutes, 3 environmental engineers appeared with their tools, already discussing optimal configurations. The matrix in Zix-427's neural feed threw up another error message when a colonial administrator arrived pushing a cart of medical supplies. According to all their studies, humans of that rank never engaged in manual labor. Yet here she was, sleeves rolled up, helping wherever needed. We're seeing patterns in the mineral samples, a mining engineer reported, approaching Doc with a tablet. They matched the resonance frequencies you asked about. Doc nodded thoughtfully, making another note in his paper notebook. Similar to the patterns in the ventilation filters. Let's get a botanist's perspective on this. Zix-427 watched in fascination as information flowed freely across departmental boundaries that his matrix insisted should be rigid and impermeable. Specialists from different fields gathered around Doc's tablet, each offering insights without concern for rank or protocol. This is unprecedented, Ven 891 harmonized quietly. Their entire command structure has evolved into something our matrices cannot categorize. The transformation reached beyond the greenhouse. Throughout the colony, humans began organizing themselves in ways that ignored traditional hierarchies. Medical staff coordinated directly with maintenance crews. Security teams collaborated with research scientists. Supply chains reorganized themselves based on need rather than regulation. A young technician approached Doc, holding up a modified environmental sensor. We adapted this to track the starlight patterns, like you mentioned. Engineering helped with the calibration. Good thinking, Doc replied, examining the device. Get these to the mining teams. They'll know the best places to position them. No requisition forms, no chain of command. Just humans working together, each contributing their expertise to a common goal. The alien diplomats watched as their carefully documented understanding of human organization dissolved like stardust. Perhaps, Zix-427 mused, his harmonics expressing deep uncertainty. We have been studying the wrong aspects of human society. Their true strength seems to lie not in their hierarchies, but in their ability to abandon them when necessary. The greenhouse, once a carefully ordered garden of food crops, had become something new, a symbol of human adaptability. Medical equipment nestled among remaining plants, diagnostic screens glowed beside hydroponic arrays, and humans of every rank worked side by side. Doc paused in his rounds, looking out over the transformed space. A faint smile crossed his face as he watched the colony's people moving with purposeful efficiency, each finding their own way to contribute. This is how we survive out here, he commented to a nearby nurse who had once been a botanical researcher. Not by clinging to titles, but by trusting each other's strengths. Zix-427's matrix finally gave up trying to categorize the scene before him. Sometimes, he realized, The most powerful authority wasn't the one granted by rank or title. It was the one that grew naturally, like a garden tended by many hands. Senior diplomat Zix 427's reinforcements arrived in a gleaming ship that dwarfed the colony's modest space dock. The Galactic Council's premier medical team emerged in perfect formation, their environmental suits color-coded by rank and specialty. Each carried equipment that represented the pinnacle of alien medical technology. "We have analyzed your reports," Chief Medical Officer Catal announced, their crystalline exoskeleton shifting colors to display their authority. "Your situation requires immediate implementation of Standard Crisis Protocol 793. Doc looked up from where he was checking a patient's vital signs, pushing his old-fashioned glasses up his nose. "Appreciate the help," he said mildly. "But we've actually made some progress understanding the Starlight sickness. If you'd like to review our findings." "Impossible," Catal interrupted, their exoskeleton flashing disapproval. "No unauthorized research protocols may be implemented during a crisis. All previous attempts at treatment must cease immediately." The human medical staff exchanged glances but continued their work. Nurses adjusted medication drips, technicians monitored equipment, and researchers examined tissue samples. Nobody stopped what they were doing. "Perhaps you misunderstood." Catal's translator harmonized with increasing distress. "By council authority, I am assuming complete control of this medical emergency." Doc calmly finished updating his patient's chart. "No one's stopping you from helping," he said, making another note in his paper notebook. "But these people are under our care, and we won't abandon what's working." Zix 427 watched the exchange with growing fascination. His matrix had finally stopped trying to categorize the interactions, having crashed completely 3 days ago. Now he simply observed, learning more about humans in each moment than decades of formal study had revealed. "Your primitive methods endanger everyone," Catal insisted, their crystalline form practically vibrating with indignation. "Our protocols are based on thousands of years of medical science." "Interesting," Doc replied, examining a new tissue sample. "Did any of those years include studying the bioluminescent properties of local mineral formations? Because we're seeing some remarkable correlations." The alien medical team bristled visibly, their equipment humming as they prepared to enforce protocol. But something unexpected happened. The humans simply continued working around them, like a river flowing around rocks. A young researcher approached Doc with a data tablet. "Those mineral samples from level 3 are showing the same resonance patterns we found in the ventilation systems." "Good work," Doc nodded, completely ignoring Catal's increasingly agitated color displays. "Let's cross-reference that with the botanical analysis." Catal's exoskeleton shifted to emergency command colors. "This is unacceptable. We demand immediate compliance with proper procedures." "You're welcome to help," Doc repeated patiently, examining the new data. "But right now, we need practical solutions more than protocols." Zix 427 stepped forward, his diplomatic training warring with his growing understanding of human adaptability. "Perhaps," he suggested carefully, "we might observe their methods before implementing standard protocols." Catal's expression was unreadable behind their crystalline face, but their color patterns displayed shock at such a suggestion. "Observe. Their methods violate 67 different regulations." And yet, Zix 427 gestured to the medical bay where humans efficiently coordinated complex tasks without any apparent hierarchy. They appear to be making progress. The alien medical team watched in bewilderment as humans of various specialties collaborated freely, sharing insights and adjusting treatments based on real-time observations rather than predetermined procedures. "This defies all established medical protocols," Catal protested weakly. Doc looked up from his examination of a glowing patient, his eyes kind behind those antiquated glasses. "Sometimes the best protocols are the ones we discover along the way." "Now, would you like to hear about what we've learned from studying the local ecosystem's response to the mineral resonances?" For the first time in recorded history, a Galactic Council medical team stood silent, their perfectly ordered protocols crumbling in the face of human pragmatism. The solution appeared in the most unexpected place, a child's crayon drawing pinned to the greenhouse wall. Doc had been examining yet another set of test results when 8-year-old Sophie Miller tugged at his sleeve, holding up her artwork. "Look," she said, pointing to the swirling patterns she'd drawn. "The lights dance just like the lightning bugs in the garden." Doc paused, pushing his glasses up as he studied the drawing. The colorful swirls did indeed match the shimmer patterns on the patient's skin. More importantly, they resembled the bioluminescent insects that had colonized the greenhouse's lower sections. "Sophie," he asked carefully, "when did you first notice the bugs dancing like this?" "When the new rocks came up," she replied, drawing another swirl in the air with her finger. "The pretty sparkly ones from the deep mines." Zix 427 watched the exchange with growing confusion. His neural feed attempted to dismiss the interaction. Surely a human child's observations couldn't be relevant to a complex medical crisis. Yet Doc was listening with complete attention. "Call," Doc called to the alien medical officer, who was still bristling over the human's refusal to follow standard protocols. "Could your equipment analyze the resonance patterns of these insects compared to the mineral samples?" "That would violate Procedure 7. Kittel began, but stopped as Doc held up Sophie's drawing beside a medical scan of a patient's bioluminescent patterns. The similarity was undeniable. The greenhouse burst into activity. Research teams that had been studying mineral samples now turned their attention to the local insects. Engineers modified their sensors to track the tiny creatures' movements. Even the alien medical team, after some hesitation, began recalibrating their equipment. "The child's observation is surprisingly accurate," Ven 891 noted, her harmonics expressing wonder. "The bioluminescent patterns match exactly." Sophie had become the center of attention, proudly showing her collection of lightning bugs in glass jars to the assembled scientists. The insects glowed with the same ethereal light that affected the patients, their patterns shifting in response to the mineral samples. "They're not sick," she explained matter-of-factly. "They're just talking to the sparkly rocks." Doc's quiet voice carried across the suddenly silent greenhouse. "She's right. This isn't a disease. It's communication." The alien medical team's equipment confirmed what a child's careful observation had revealed. The mineral veins recently exposed by the mining operation emanated specific frequencies. The local insects had evolved to respond to these frequencies with bioluminescent displays. Humans and aliens, with their own bioelectric fields, were inadvertently joining this ancient conversation. The treatment isn't to stop the reaction, Doc realized, making notes in his ever-present notebook. It's to help translate it. Kittel's crystalline form shifted through various colors of confusion and dawning understanding. But this goes against every standard protocol for disease management. Because it's not a disease, Doc smiled, watching the insects dance in their jars. It's just a new way of experiencing this world's natural rhythms. The breakthrough led to an elegant solution. By modifying the colony's environmental systems to harmonize with the mineral frequencies rather than block them, they could help both humans and aliens adapt to the phenomenon safely. Sophie beamed as she released her lightning bugs back into the greenhouse garden. "They just wanted to make everyone pretty," she declared with childhood wisdom. Zix 427 observed the scene with what his species would consider inappropriate emotion. His matrix had long since given up trying to categorize this situation. A child's crayon drawing had accomplished what the most advanced alien medical technology could not. Perhaps, he harmonized quietly to Ven 891. "We should reconsider our methods of gathering scientific data." Doc knelt beside Sophie, helping her arrange fresh flowers near the released insects. "Sometimes the best observers are the ones who haven't learned to ignore the obvious," he said, his eyes twinkling behind his glasses. The starlight sickness, as it turned out, had never been a sickness at all. It was simply this alien world's way of welcoming its new inhabitants into an ancient dance of light and crystal, first observed by a child who still knew how to see wonder in the ordinary. The Galactic Council's xenosociology team arrived just as the colony was implementing their solution to the starlight phenomenon. They found senior diplomat Zix-427 in the greenhouse, watching humans adjust environmental systems with a grace that defied his previous understanding of their society. Fascinating. Lead researcher Naval observed, their crystalline form shifting through analytical patterns. According to your reports, their command structure has evolved into something entirely new. Not evolved, Zix-427 corrected, gesturing to where Doc worked alongside a team of engineers. We simply failed to see what was always there. The scene before them would have crashed any standard matrix. A mining supervisor consulted with botanical researchers about mineral resonance patterns. Security officers collaborated with medical staff to coordinate new safety protocols. Even Kill's medical team had integrated themselves into the fluid human workflow, their rigid protocols softening in the face of practical necessity. Watch, Zix-427 told his fellow observers. See how leadership flows between them. Doc stepped back as Commander Chen, now recovered, took charge of implementing the new colony-wide environmental modifications. Yet moments later, when a technical question arose, everyone naturally turned to Doc again. The transition happened smoothly, without announcement or ceremony. It's like a dance, Ven 891 suggested, her harmonics carrying wonder. Each leading when their expertise is needed, following when another's strength is required. The xenosociologists' instruments whirred as they attempted to document this unprecedented social phenomenon. Their matrices struggled to categorize a system where authority wasn't just delegated but shared, where leadership grew from trust rather than title. Look there, Naval pointed to where Sophie, the young discoverer of the breakthrough, was explaining her observations to a mixed group of human and alien scientists. Even their young are granted authority when their insights prove valuable. Commander Chen approached the alien observers, her skin still carrying a faint star-like shimmer. Your report mentioned confusion about our command structure, she said with a smile. Having trouble fitting us into your matrices. We've never encountered a species that can shift authority so fluidly, Naval admitted. It defies categorization. That's because you're trying to measure something that can't be quantified, Doc commented as he passed by, making another note in his paper notebook. Trust isn't about numbers or ranks. The xenosociologists watched as he moved through the greenhouse, briefly checking on patients, offering suggestions to the environmental team, and listening to new observations from both humans and aliens. His authority seemed to expand and contract naturally, like breathing. Their social structure isn't rigid at all, Zix-427 explained to his fascinated colleagues. It's responsive, adaptable, like their planet's bioluminescent life forms adjusting to mineral frequencies. A junior researcher raised their crystalline appendage. But how do they maintain order without strict hierarchies? Order maintains itself, Commander Chen replied, when everyone is empowered to contribute their best. The aliens observed as the colony continued its work, humans and aliens together, learning to dance with the planet's natural rhythms. The starlight that had once been seen as a sickness now illuminated a deeper truth about human society. We'll need to revise every xenosociological study, Ninval declared, their form flickering with excitement. This changes our understanding of social evolution itself. Zix-427 watched Doc sharing quiet words with Kittle, whose own rigid protocols had softened through exposure to human adaptability. Perhaps, he suggested, instead of trying to categorize humans, we should learn from them. The greenhouse had become more than a medical facility or a garden. It was a living laboratory of human social dynamics, where leadership flowed like water, finding its own level, nurturing growth in unexpected places. As the sun set beyond the colony's domes, the combined light of stars, bioluminescent life, and shimmering skin created a dance of light that seemed to celebrate this new understanding. Humans, it turned out, had never needed rigid hierarchies to thrive. They just needed space to grow, trust to nurture, and the freedom to dance to their own rhythm. 1 month after the starlight phenomenon began, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of what they'd discovered on New Haven. Senior diplomat Zix-427 stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline form glowing with the confidence of hard-won understanding. Our translation matrices, he began, have been measuring the wrong things. We thought we understood human leadership because we could categorize their titles. We were wrong. The council chamber's holographic displays showed scenes from New Haven, Doc working alongside Commander Chen to implement colony-wide changes, Sophie teaching alien scientists about local wildlife, and humans of every rank collaborating without concern for hierarchy. The humans have not abandoned order, Zix-427 continued. They've achieved something far more remarkable. They've learned to let order emerge naturally from trust and competence. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their crystalline seats. The idea challenged millennia of rigid social structures. Yet the evidence was undeniable. New Haven's crisis response had proven more effective than any protocol-driven approach. Kill stepped forward, their medical team's data streaming across the chamber's displays. Their methods were unorthodox, they admitted, but they achieved results our protocols never could. They turned a potential disaster into a breakthrough in xenobiology. The chamber erupted in harmonics of discussion. Some council members expressed alarm at the implications. Others showed cautious curiosity about this new understanding of human social dynamics. Back on New Haven, Doc continued his rounds in the greenhouse, now transformed into a permanent research center. The starlight shimmer had faded from the colonists' skin, but traces remained, a gentle reminder of the planet's gift to its new inhabitants. The Council wants to know if we'll implement their new diplomatic protocols, Commander Chen mentioned, reviewing reports beside a flowering mineral garden. Doc smiled, adjusting his old-fashioned glasses. Seems they might be missing the point again. Young Sophie burst in, leading a group of alien researchers to show them a new pattern she discovered in the bioluminescent insects. The xenobiologists followed eagerly, their instruments forgotten as they simply observed through a child's eyes. Your species continues to surprise us, Ven 891 told Doc, her harmonics carrying deep respect. We thought leadership required rigid structure, yet you demonstrate it requires something else entirely. Trust, Doc replied, making a note in his ever-present notebook. Trust, and the wisdom to recognize it comes in many forms. The Galactic Council's final report recommended a complete revision of their approach to human relations. The translation matrices would no longer focus solely on titles and ranks. Instead, they would attempt to track the fluid networks of trust and competence that truly defined human leadership. We still don't fully understand how they do it, Ninval admitted to their fellow researchers. How do they know when to lead and when to follow? Zix-427, watching Doc coordinate yet another research project with his quiet efficiency, thought he finally understood. They lead by serving, he explained, and they follow by choice, not command. The greenhouse garden bloomed with new life, human and alien scientists working together to understand the complex dance of mineral resonance and biological response. The rigid barriers between species began to dissolve, just as the divisions of rank had melted away during the crisis. Commander Chen found Doc in his small clinic, still treating routine cases with the same care he'd shown during the emergency. The Council wants to name you as their primary contact for human affairs, she told him, amusement in her voice. Tell them I'm just a doctor, he replied, cleaning his glasses with practiced care. Titles are just the beginning of understanding someone's worth. As New Haven's sun set, casting rainbow refractions through the crystal gardens, humans and aliens together had learned a profound truth. True leadership couldn't be captured in a matrix or defined by a title. It grew naturally, like the flowers in their garden, nurtured by trust and blooming in unexpected places. The starlight sickness had taught them all that sometimes the most powerful authority was the kind that never needed to be claimed at all.